making up like
Recording is on.
Hello and welcome to the DXDAO BizDev call for Monday, December 13th, 2021. On the agenda today, we don't have any member introductions and we don't have anyone presenting. We'll be talking about Carrot, sort of like wrapping up all the ideas that we've been talking about so far. Initiative DAO, the proposal is live, and I've already made like a sort of like a proposal for the DAO to spend some money. We have the stake GNO swapping that is live. And we have the XDAO ecosystem DAO that, there's a lot to talk about. And ETH Denver and some DX Ventures opportunities like Atlantis, Double, and Karma. So yeah, do we want to start with Carrot interest?
Yeah. So there's still, I guess for processes, I think last week we were, I wasn't following it in detail, but we're like still figuring out like processes for how to create these things and stuff. And so it would be, I guess, helpful to know if there's projects that want to like do little experiments and things, even if they're like small or kind of fun, are those things that we can like easily implement? Because I know there's a lot of work to making sure the front end shows the actual campaign and then creating it and stuff. And so do we want to have like a measured approach, or if we have projects that are thinking about doing a like unique, interesting test of it, would we want to like try to execute a bunch of kind of smaller ones across a bunch of different communities? Or is that like, is the resource commitment for that difficult? And so really we'd focus more on one or two, maybe larger ones at first, and like what kind of approach I did from a technical perspective we'd want to like take with Carrot, I guess. And so Federico is not here. I don't know if he's back this week, but if someone has some perspective on like how much of a flow we would want to do in creating new Carrot campaigns. Do we have the capacity to do lots of smaller ones, or is it very limited?
it would be good to ask Federico. I would say maybe we should shoot for like less than a handful as a goal, like 3 to 5. It's probably a good number that seems like manageable, but would expand the effort. Yeah. Last I heard from Federico over the weekend, he's actively working on Carrot V2, incorporating the decentralized fork of the Keeper network. He's thinking of strategies for combining conditions and execution of those, thinking of NFTs and stuff. But before we go on to the next version, the next iteration of the protocol, we need to think of what do we do with what we've got at hand first. And
so it's like the next version sounds awesome. I guess one of the it's like the weakest link in the chain. Like my understanding was like Federico's the only one that can create. Actually, Luigi Lemon created one, but to like get it fully to show up in the UI and all that kind of stuff, like people could create some carrots from the smart contracts if they do it correctly, great, and without someone's permission. But then to have it show up correctly in the front end is the main
right. We got to add it manually to the front end right now, and at least with like trying to show data, there's a little bit of work there, right? We got to get the data source from some subgraph or something and plug that in. And Federico has been doing that. So that's something I think as we onboard projects. It's just important to remember that that will take a little bit of time, and then that we'll need to update the UI as well. Like, so yeah, just
do we,
leave some time for that.
if we had like some carrot that was like a simple condition, like based on some price in the future, do we think we even would need, like in some cases, do we even need to show the actual data, or is it would be okay
Yeah, I
to
think
not?
yeah, it's not really necessary, I suppose. Like, I mean, I think that's one of the questions we should try to figure out. Like, do we really need it? Is it, because that might be one of the easiest ways to start introducing kind of like the do-it-yourself element into the UI, right? Like allow people to create carrots from the UI, but maybe there's no data, right? If you want like a graph or something, then that's going to require the custom part. Like maybe that's a next step.
So the main reason that brings this up is because in Omen, like you don't need to show data, because almost all of the things, like when they were talking about a price or TVL, like we would like pick a certain point in time. The average is what makes it more gray. So if you say, and we're using averages in carrot to make it less gameable, right? And then the minute you say the average of December versus like the price of something at the end of the year, like that's how Omen's always been. At the end of 2021, which is like the last minute of the last day of UTC time, 2021, like people look at what the price of something is, and like then reality solves that, and you could look at a graph, right? The minute we start saying like the average of December 2021, it's very hard for people to know where to look for that. So that's, in that case, that's why we created these data graphs, which, and then like actually says like, oh, look at the actual carrot data average that's shown on the UI to settle the condition, basically. And so I think that's what's caused the extra work around showing data and what data to look at, is this average thing. And I think we're gonna, in carrot, we're probably going to be using averages a lot. So then that's why the data in the UI makes a lot of sense, but that's the extra work. So even I'm not sure you can ever make this like kind of fully permissionless, right? Like Omen is fully permissionless and it works, but you could do an Omen market and say the average of something, and then we just like trust that the world will come up with what that average is and then propose it to reality.eth. So we could do the same approach we do with Omen, and just like trust the system without showing graphical data, I think.
Yeah, that's I think a really good summary. I would add just that I think with the data where we could potentially go into like a more permissionless creation, kind of do-it-yourself model, is maybe with the data, you can support data from specific platforms, right? So like maybe eventually the Carrot UI will support like the Swapper subgraph, or other particular platforms where you might want to, but I don't know how that interesting that is to projects, because like each project is probably going to have their own platform that they're trying to incentivize. I guess it sort of depends what people are trying to do.
If you have subgraphs like linked, would you have to like show a list, like a drop down of here are all the pieces of data you could choose from that feed in from the subgraph? Because like you just said, that like most projects have a custom thing they want to ask against a condition, and even subgraph like might or might not have that. So like I guess if you had a drop down of all the data you could show from a subgraph, then it could be permissionless, because you're permissionless within the bounds of the data of those subgraphs. But that's very different than any project that wants to do another condition. And if you don't show the data, you just kind of trust that, like, I mean, if you say average, you wanted to clarify what kind of average it is. But at the end of the day, like, people have to go figure out what that average was or what the condition settlement is, and then propose that to reality. And it could lead to some contention if some people think it's one thing and other people think it's one thing, but then that's where the reality.eth thing, if the two things are close enough, then at some point someone's like, okay, that's basically what my answer was. I don't want to stake more money. Like, let's just settle it on that one, basically, right? And it seems
Yeah,
to have always worked for Omen. I mean, we've had a couple contentious markets, which were not really anything to do with data. They're more like opinion of how to interpret a market. And so I think we could just make it as simple as possible.
Yeah, and I think it's likely that Carrot is less of a contentious platform than Omen, because in Omen you literally have two sides of the market, right? And like if they're in disagreement, they both are very incentivized to be the right one, right? To have their side be right. Whereas in Carrot, it's more like the side that's giving out the incentives, I think generally wants to give out the incentives, right? So if it's like a close call, I don't think projects are going to be like, but I don't know. I mean, it depends. I think the other question too is like, what's more popular? Is it like scalar type ranges or is it binary? Because if it's a range, I could see it being less of a contentious thing too, because it's more just it's less at stake if you're slightly off, right? But yeah, I think these are things that we need to think about, and some of this could be before doing a lot of development work. I think it's good to try to understand what people want, if possible, right? To let the market itself kind of guide us in terms of what we're developing.
And do we have the ability for people here, not just Federico, to create counter campaigns, or is it?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, anybody can do it. It's. I mean, technically anybody can do it. It takes some know-how, but we can get some people ramped up on that.
There should be like some documentation, like assuming this is like taking subgraph events, right? Is that the complication?
So there's two. The subgraph only comes into play with displaying data on the front end. That is important in resolving the question at the end. So the actual like Carrot tokens, it's a pretty simple contract that is deployed on XDAI where anybody can deposit their collateral token that is the ultimate reward and create the Carrot tokens, the Carrot KPI tokens. So yeah, we should have more documentation as well, but it's still pretty, like I think the goal would be to make that eventually something that could actually be done in the UI. Right now it's, you have to do it directly to the blockchain.
No, you're saying video, but I find the best thing, and XDAI, if you look at their website, is very good at this. Like the next person who does create, and if it's Federico or someone else that creates a Carrot campaign, if you could like take screenshots and like write down the steps of what a person has to do, that documentation should be in our documentation, and someone should be able to look at that or Google how to create Carrot, and that should be the first pop-up, and then they should be able to follow those steps and create a Carrot using, you know, Etherscan or yeah, since there's no like UI to do it, you do it in Etherscan, right? But that should be written down somewhere so that people will have something to reference, I think.
Yeah, as long as it's controlled by the DAO, I don't think we could do with a walkthrough at the moment. It's still permissioned. In a future iteration, when it's permissionless, more like the DIY liquidity mining setup on Swapper, then we could have a walkthrough like this. And internally, we could definitely, you know, have a meeting so we're all familiarized with the process. But at this stage, I think it's a tad too complex to do with a walkthrough.
Well, Nathan, so like Luigi Lemon, he did it. Like, so it is open and permissionless. Just no one here knows how to do it. So if we had it written down, we wouldn't have to wait for Federico, kind of thing.
Yeah, like there's a difference between the backend. You know, the backend is open sourced, and Luigi did it, but he still couldn't do the front end. And for the front end, we wouldn't be able to release like a walkthrough at this point because it's in the hands of the DAO and it's not fully permissionless.
That makes sense. Like you would never have the front end where people could like add stuff to the front end. So it either has to feed automatically at time of creation, but people can still use Carrots and create Carrots even if it doesn't like immediately show the front end like Luigi did, basically. So if we don't want people doing that, I guess that's one thing. But if we want people like interested in Carrot and trying stuff, the front end. I mean, you could never give permission to people to adjust the front end, right? That would be.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're both right? Like, I think we'll do the meeting and we'll get that better documented, so we have more people able to do it, understand it. It should eventually be on DX Docs. So yeah, we'll definitely do that. And then I think Nathan's also right, though, that like we don't want to just like throw people the documentation. We still need to be hand-holding, I think, for the time being. And yes, like anybody could create carrots and like give them out and like use them. But I think the trick there with the UI is that when it comes to actually redeeming them, like presumably they're giving carrots to somebody, to, you know, some group of parties or something, and those people should have somewhere to go to redeem them. I mean, I don't know, maybe people are want to handle it all themselves, and that they could do that. That's fine. We could even know. But I think in general, we want to help people through the whole process at this point.
And possibly for a midterm solution to make it easier to create campaigns without relying on charting that is done by us. Like, it's to ease the process and not have us work on a chart for every project that wants to do a carrot campaign. You know how we have a walkthrough of how you confirm an IPFS hash. So if a project is allowed to create a campaign in the future, in a permissionless iteration, to create a campaign and put it in the description how anyone could easily run a query on a subgraph to find the end result, and that's public, then maybe that's like a short midterm solution.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, like the end goal is to have like an end-to-end product where someone could come and, you know, do a thing from the UI. So yeah, I don't know. I guess we need like this interim solution for now with like detailed documentation. This documentation could be used later if someone wants to build like a different front end that uses the same protocol. Like, I don't know, maybe someone wants to integrate, like someone wants to allow you to create carrot directly from their UI, for example. Like that could be something interesting. So yeah, I don't know, John, did you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And just wanted to comment that I think the people using it now, that's going to hopefully help us build that UI, right? Like that's going to inform how we build it. Like what do these people want? The first people using it, what kind of feedback do we get from them? And yeah.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, Nathan said earlier that we should have like a carrot team meeting. So like I think maybe this should also be public. And yeah, we should just like talk about carrots as like a public product and invite people who are using it to hear like what are we doing with carrot and what are the updates, and get their feedback as well. So yeah. I guess there should be like an internal meeting and then an external meeting as well. So I don't know how to structure that.
Yeah, it's still early, but yeah, in a couple of internal meetings, and then we could do what you suggested with inviting projects.
I mean, I wonder why we need like a separate one. Like we should perhaps just like start with like a public meeting, and then anyone could join. This could be like, I don't know, maybe like, I don't know, stand up, starting with a stand up and figuring out like the next steps with carrot.
Yeah, and I think if we invite, you know, someone like Luigi, the guys from Agave, they will have good input. So yeah, but you know, after all, even though we're a DAO, you know, we kind of the process of product ideation is still somewhat internal in the early stages before you present it. So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think having some public stuff, some feedback, like I don't know if everybody here even knows, but like the Agave is using it, right? So it's live on Nextai. If you go to their platform and you deposit into their platform, you're actually earning carrot tokens, and it shows a little carrot logo in the rewards, which is pretty cool. And so, yeah, it'd be great to get some kind of a public meeting, I think, going to get some feedback from the users using this stuff typically, I think on the development side, like, projects are doing their own like Scrum meetings and stuff, and those don't need to be public because it's just about getting organized on the to-do list, really. But yeah, I mean, some kind of forum would be good as well.
Yeah. Okay, should we move on to the next topic? Or any other mentions of Carrot?
I mean, just to, as most of us are also part of the DXvoice squad, also that this kind of conversation would also help tremendously with marketing the product. Yeah, on to the next topic.
So the next topic is Initiative DAO. And I think the proposal is live, but I cannot open NextDAO. I don't know. Is it still down?
Yeah, this proposal has had some issues where I don't know. It's broken in DXvote. It broke DXvote, and you can't see. I don't know. You can't see the IPFS. You can't see anything. So it's a little risky. That is the proposal. You can see the money's going to at least the multi-sig that was created for Initiative DAO, which is like a temporary or a first type of multi-sig. It was kind of based on a DXvoice multi-sig with an adjustment. Like Nathan is also included, but Tammy's not, since she's kind of moving away, and she's still on DXvoice, but maybe she would be taken off that as well. But it's just like, yeah, and I don't know if Nylon, you want to be on it too, but it's just a place to put these funds allocated aside on XDAI, and then people, maybe we want to create a thread. The question is, if you have an idea, I don't know, Nylon, where did you post your idea that you had? Was it on the forum? Is it its own thread?
No, this is just in the
chat, right?
The Keybase chat, yeah.
Yeah, so we should, I think a cool would be like Initiative DAO thread for like then that would be where anyone would post a new idea.
Yeah.
And that would be like the best way to intro it to the Initiative DAO, just so it have like, and maybe the 3 things you want to communicate, which is about the idea to get the amount of funds you want, and then that could be processed rather quickly, given like it fits the criteria laid out. Well, I guess the problem is the criteria. I can't remember if I put it in the forum also, but the criteria, which is like the details, is actually in the proposal, and the proposal is what no one can see. So that's a problem. You can't see the different criteria. So I guess we need to put that in the forum as well. Yeah, this is a governance technical issue that's pretty bad. I mean, I don't know why the one text data for IPFS is not showing for this one proposal, but it's, when that passes, those funds will be there, and then people, I guess the thread will be the place where someone could introduce an idea. And if someone comes to the chat or something from the community with an idea, we just say, oh yeah, that's a good idea, put that in that thread, like propose it in the thread, and then we'll have a whole list of all the threads with the different ideas. Yeah. People asked about the proposal. Chris asked over the weekend if that was my worker proposal, which wasn't my worker proposal, but it was Initiative DAO funding, and so I guess it would have been downstaked or downvoted. I guess downvoted if people didn't know what it was. But the other thing, this is a governance thing. I was a little concerned, and so Dave and I both ran into a problem around this not showing, but then like trying to redeem Jen from like a past proposal. And then Augusto said he was working on the cache and all this kind of stuff, and that's why DXvote was down. But I didn't understand why doing a transaction wouldn't actually release gen, like redeem gen, even if the front end was being worked on. Is that like,
no, those would definitely be unrelated things. Yeah, they have nothing to do with each other.
really?
Yeah, 100%.
Well, why did it stop working then, and now then it started working?
The gen stuff, or is
Yeah.
it working now?
Yeah.
I guess potentially just available gen. Do you know how much was available?
Oh, there's plenty of gen. Like it literally, it wasn't doing anything. Yeah, you couldn't redeem. I mean,
Yeah,
you could do the
it's
transaction,
completely unrelated from the front end though.
Yeah, I had the same issue with Gen, and I was actually querying it directly from the voting machine. Like I was on Block Scout or under contract on Write Contract, and it didn't work.
Do you guys have a transaction that should have sent gen? That, I mean, we should probably take this offline because we're getting a little off topic. But
Yeah.
we should look into this more if whatever it is.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we have the, like when it was happening and stuff, and maybe the transactions are in the, I guess, in the DX vote channel, so we can continue it there. But to say it's totally unrelated, I wouldn't necessarily 100% say that, because it happened all at the exact same time, so it could be related. But yeah, I guess we can move on from Initiative DAO. So we'll create that thread where people can post. And then the next thing you guys were talking about a little bit in the beginning is like the GNO swapping, and then GNO Gnosis auction is live. And I guess this whole thing is happening. And at the same time is this like XDAI ecosystem DAO is still in the works of being formed. And one interesting topic, which just raised here, is so this DAO effectively becomes a DAO of different projects in the XDAI ecosystem. So you could argue it's a DAO of DAOs, but there's a representative for each DAO who have showed up to these like conversations so far. And most projects, just like there's one person there like talking on behalf of the DAO, but there's never been like a formal there haven't been like formal like elections or anything of who should represent each project in each DAO in this like DAO of DAOs, this ecosystem DAO, right? And so it should be up to each community. And so in this case, DXDAO's community, a bunch of us have been attending the calls and things, and have organized some of it as well. And just like not by any like direct choice, like I was put on the or I was offered to be included on the original multi-sig, which is like the stepping stone before we have an actual DAO for this DAO. And so theoretically, I'm representing, I mean, at least for voting power, I'm representing a vote on the multi-sig right now for DXDAO. And then could be a representative in this DAO representing DXDAO, and just wanted to make sure. Someone asked, like, how do we prove that each community has said this is the person that's representing the DAO? And we don't have those proofs. And I kind of compared it to like layer two different types of layer two. And this is how I'm thinking about it, is right now, like some of these communities, like we're lucky to get even a representative from these communities. Like DXDAO is good because we've had a handful of community members there representing DXDAO and speaking on behalf of DXDAO, which is always great because people, when we have these calls and like John talks and Nathan talks and Keenan talks and I talk, it's like a bigger DXDAO presence, which is always great. And it becomes like you become one of the more, I don't know, leader-like DAOs in that ecosystem. But I guess it's a long-winded saying of, does DXDAO want to do a vote to say who should be a representative on behalf of DXDAO in each community that we exist? Or is it by default kind of like DXbiz people like myself or Nylon or Nathan, unless otherwise challenged? And then if there was a reason that person wasn't representing correctly because people are paying attention and they say like, well, that's not the voice of DXDAO, like we challenge that, and actually then it's up to the DAO to prove like who can represent on behalf of DXDAO. And so it's an open question and open discussion that all of these communities are trying to or will have to figure out. And you could just like go with it as is until something bad happens and then address it, or you could actually try to do a more formal proof ahead of time and say like, oh, we did a rep vote, we did a signal proposal, and we decided that this person is going to represent the DAO or the thoughts of the DAO into this ecosystem DAO. And so that's like a broad topic, and I didn't know if anyone had any thoughts about that, or just in general how that dynamic could happen across the space as we have more and more situations like this where people are ambassadors or representatives of DXDAO or a DXDAO squad, I guess.
Yeah, I think this is a good example of like where the best strategy is maybe something like optimistic governance, which is like assume that things are going ahead and like move forward, but then like DXDAO has the ability to kind of like revoke that or to be able to do something at a later state. Because I think like what you guys are doing is great. I think we want to like empower ambassadors or like the DXbiz people to be, or anyone in a lot of areas to be like members of different community. It is important though, like if they are entering those communities as like representatives of DXDAO, like the reason that you're on the multi-sig is not just because you're Sky, it's because it's like kind of DXDAO's position on that multi-sig. But I think it's easier to put like structure around it or even like ask those questions once it's already set up. And so we should kind of like optimistically move forward with these things with the ability for like governance to like, kind of move at a later stage or something, and kind of maybe just claw back or take back or really just further enable.
Yeah. So the key with optimistic roll-ups or optimistic governance is that it's really important to have other people also watching, because if there's no like quote unquote watchdogs, there's no one to like call out what could be a malicious voice or a malicious action, right? So you can have one representative, but it's really important to have multiple people there to like to basically call a discrepancy of the optimistic governance if there was one, right? Versus the opposite is like ZK proof governance, where like you prove up front that you already have this decision from the DAO, but you need to have the watchdogs. Otherwise, like optimistic rollups don't work if there's no one like watching whether or not everything is correct.
Watchdog is a great phrase. I don't know if you want to have like governance watchdog. That's kind of like the next layer of that. We could figure out how that would work. Maybe that's like a monthly report back on things, and those people are kind of aware. But I think that is like a key part of that accountability to like DXDAO or governance rep holders.
Yeah. In Genesis DAO, there was something that came up that was called like the accountability task force, which essentially you'd had like, a few people that was like a part of their role to actually see that certain initiatives are like executed on, or like, review them for the rest, and make sure that, I don't know, someone's not doing what they're supposed to. This is an interesting concept. I don't know, could be possible to explore it here too.
So I guess if are most people okay with like taking this optimistic governance approach currently for this situation, and then participate as much as you can, everyone, and then if we have a new situation, we can try that again or try a different version. But unless anyone has a problem with it, that's how it's going so far. So.
Maybe we should I'm trying to think like maybe we should allocate specific time maybe in this call to update on that topic and then get the feedback from everyone else.
Yeah. It also connects in with governance as a service. So like theoretically, if DeFi money market, if DAO was actually ever was a DAO, and then like we had a lot of DMG, and we still do, I guess, right? we got to figure out what to do with that still. But if we were going to have an ambassador, like I was trying to do it at one point, but there wasn't much to do, and there was no way to vote with our holdings. And so we already have that issue. We're holding work token, for example. There's not really that many votes today, but eventually there will be votes and stuff. And so there's voting with tokens that DXDAO holds, right? And then there's representing DXDAO in those governance discussions. So it's heavily tied with governance, but it's also DXbiz, because it's I would guess DAO to DAO kind of communication and relations. So it ties in with both. But yeah, we could do updates on this call, and then also maybe mention it if it was highly related to like governance, or there had to be a vote or something. Because at some point, I think we might do an internal signal vote or a DXDAO vote in order to make a decision on a representation into another DAO, right? We could do soft consensus, but sometimes we may have, if we can do it fast enough, we could have quick signal proposals. And that may need a new scheme in DX vote, but you might have like a 1 or 2 day signal vote. And this is something we can never really do with Alchemy, and now we'll be able to do it with DX vote. Oh, there's an upcoming proposal. We need the voice of DXDAO's decision to go vote using that voice in this other DAO's proposal. Like, let's do a quick signal DX vote signal proposal to figure out how we're going to vote on this other proposal in the other DAO. So yeah, we'll try to keep everyone updated on that.
Yeah, I think this is really cool stuff. You can see this kind of growing a lot. And just to point out, like, this is also the benefit of reputation as part of DXDAO, because people can represent DXDAO, but there's still some like recourse if they like act maliciously, because reputation can still be slashed. So I think it's a really like advantage I think that DXDAO has in terms of like being able to extend into other communities and still like having some control or like a recourse over it.
Yeah, I mean the whole thing just shows how early we are in the space, as this kind of situation hasn't even occurred yet and people haven't thought it out. I do agree with the optimistic type of way of looking at it. If any community comes up to the ecosystem DAO and says we no longer agree with this person representing us, then that will be the beginning of a process to offboard that person from the ecosystem DAO. But overall, the due diligence should be on the ecosystem DAO to make sure that anyone who approaches the multisig and wants to be a part of it and says that they represent certain community is double checked whether that person really represents that said community. Because if I look at the ecosystem DAO and see that there's a DApp on XDAI chain that is underrepresented, like that there isn't anyone in the Discord channel, and I implant myself and say that I represent them, but no one really knows me or has ever checked whether I'm really part of that team, or and I could be a part of the multi-sig without the DAO doing due diligence. So there should really be some ask for proof, whether signing a message on chain or some kind of a signal vote from each DAO. And also the offboarding, how does that happen? Like, is the multi-sig of ecosystem DAO able to boot someone if their community no longer wants them to represent them? And also, is that a security issue for ecosystem DAO? Like, imagine if the jury, they have one person who's hung up on a vote and they boot him just so that they could pass a proposal. Is that okay? Should the ecosystem DAO multisig always maintain a certain number of minimum votes? So if they decide to boot someone, they should only do it when they also at the same time onboard someone new, so that they remain like the number of voters, like whether it's 5 out of 7 or whatever, remains intact. That the space is still early, so that it's nice that we're kind of innovating doing this type stuff.
Yeah. Maybe we should. I guess there's 10 minutes. We should probably move along.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to talk quickly about ETH Denver or about like some of the DX Ventures opportunities? I don't think Tammy's
Yeah.
here.
So ETH Denver first. Like, we're still figuring out how if we can do the sponsorship as a proposal, but ETH Denver got flack with their like whole privacy things and like why they need liability. I don't know. They're going to try to get someone to sign it, but I don't know who's supposed to sign it. I don't know. So we're trying to figure that out. But I think the immediate thing would be we need to figure out if DXDAO wants to have an event or some type of drinks thing and what day and start organizing that. I believe that would be something that we just a chill drinks would work, but we need to then, I agree, inviting people, like not just open Eventbrite. We would just like have a code and we would hand invite like any of the people that we would want to come there, basically. So we would need a date and a place. Yeah.
I wonder can we use like Carrot for kind of like how they're using Kickback? Just
no, so Carrot in general is not good for individual people things, right? It's good for crowds. It works if the individuals make up a crowd, but we should actually use Kickback if we want to do like a staked event where people stake money. We should actually use Kickback.
Yeah, Kickback's good for enforcing people, getting people to commit and follow through, right? But I do think you could use Carrot for events to like incentivize or like promote attendance, because you could have something like, will the event sell out or will it be at capacity, right? And you could like give those carrots out ahead of time.
Yeah, you mean so? Yeah, everyone has carrots, and then if everyone shows up, then if the target was 100 people and 100 people actually show up to the event and check in, then everyone gets money.
Yeah, that everybody with the carrot could redeem. Yeah, you need like a single, because it's like the oracle needs to be answered, right? So like something like Kickback, you're actually like per person, somebody's like checking that off, right? Like, oh, they were actually here, they get their money back. With Carrot, you'd probably want something more like a single condition.
So I guess the best way would actually be like use Kickback with Carrot, because the problem with Carrot is we don't have everyone's wallet addresses, right? So you either have to ask for them some way, but if you use Kickback, people could like stake 10x DAI. You have all their wallet addresses, right? They all are on Kickback. I mean, you actually use Polygon, so we do it on Polygon, and then we distribute them carrots to the same wallet addresses on XDAI. And so we could layer Carrot on top of Kickback, actually, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I could see it as like Carrot would be a way to like basically delegate some number of people as promoters, right? Like if you gave like a dozen people carrots ahead of like the event that had like a 500 person capacity or something, right? It would like incentivize them to promote the event. And then Kickback is like, it gets people to commit ahead of time and then actually show up, right? So yeah, separate. I kind of think of them as like separate things. It would be cool to use them together, though. That could be neat.
How big of a event and a chill drinks sounds good at like a bar in the area or a brewery, there's a lot of breweries, and figuring out like what day, and these things can't really be during the main. They're not supposed to be like events during the main ETH Denver hackathon, which is Friday night or Friday afternoon till Sunday night. So it has to be like prior to that sometime. But then there's also like the Gitcoin events, I think on Wednesday or Thursday. Then there's probably other events. And so it would have to be like an afternoon or evening, like Tuesday or Wednesday, I guess.
I think those are the best events, to be honest. Like right after the conference.
Right after the conference?
Like, I mean, like right after the day of like lectures and stuff, like 4 or 5 p.m.
Should be before with the schedule, I think, right? Because right after this is the week before ETH Denver, I think, the way the Denver one is set up. Right after ETH Denver, I think the schedule is sending people up to the mountains for that retreat.
Yeah.
Yeah, Monday is the Taoist. So yeah, it'd probably have to be Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't know if there's events on those days. There's a Gitcoin event. I don't know if it's Wednesday or Thursday. But
we should announce it soon, so then people are going to be saying like, "Oh, but there's the DXDAO drinks that night. We can't do it that night," you know.
Well, this is the thing. Announcing it. So the way we did the Omen one in Lisbon, I feel is not ideal. I don't know. I didn't go to the Gnosis drinks that like John, some of you guys went to, but that was like seemed like they hand invited a whole bunch of people, and then there was drinks and like some food or whatever. But it was like people showed up because they got like a special invite to those things. So we would, I think, want to like special invite, like only send it to like people that we'd want to show up. I don't think we need to publicly announce it, and then have like an Eventbrite or anything.
I mean, during the event, you always can invite people there, right? Because people are always like, "Oh, I didn't get into this, I didn't get into that," and then we can just say, "Oh, just come chill with us here at this time and date at this place," right?
Okay, so pretty free and open then. You're saying like something that could hold hundreds of people, or 100.
I mean, I'm no, I don't have any strong preference there, but I'm saying that's the approach we could take, right? We could just, even if we invite selected people. Like, I mean, during a conference, there are always people who are like, "Oh, I didn't get into that. I didn't sign up for that," right? Like,
yeah, but that's not
the Gnosis
leftovers. We want to invite the people that we actually want to come, right? Like early on.
Are you saying
that was like
yeah?
So the Gnosis dinner was like a list, right? Like that they had. It was sort of like they invited like who they wanted. I don't know if we wanted to do that, and that maybe made a little more sense for Gnosis in Lisbon because they have like offices in Lisbon and stuff. But do we want that where it's like kind of an exclusive thing, like you have to be on the list, or do we want something more?
Yeah, I feel like we would want to do something like more open. I wonder if we could. I don't know. I wonder if we could maybe like sort of like save the date type thing, and then people could subscribe with like their Ethereum address or something, and then get notified. There is a protocol that allows you to send messages now to Ethereum addresses. Yeah. I mean, this is something to build. So
I guess we need to. Yeah, we'll talk about this in the ETH Denver channel working group, but we need to probably come up with an idea and propose it and get this thing moving.
Yeah, I would say like a landing page where people leave their emails. Like that's pretty good. Like we can even, I don't know, just like a huge carrot in there, or like just do like a DXDAO and carrot logos, or I don't know, something that will induce some FOMO.
You want to collect email addresses?
Yeah, but that's the problem. I don't want to collect email addresses. I'm saying like I would rather have like people log in with their Web3, and then we could notify them somehow.
But how do we? Yeah, how?
Yeah, I think that's why we should use Kickback.
So there's a protocol called Inbox by like Parallel DAO. I just saw it. Not Parallel DAO, but Parallel. I'll send it later.
But I think it could also be cool what like John was saying, what Gnosis did, right? I mean, we could even do both, right? It could also be like a separate dinner with people we're in talks with. Like if we want to talk with the Agave people and stuff, invite like some of their people to like a more closed dinner or something like that, we could host. And I mean, we could do both, right?
Yeah, it could be nice to do something intimate with people that we're actually like working with directly, right? That we know are going to be around or that we've invested in or something, right? Like that could be cool.
Cool. And then just
check this out if you want to.
Just quickly before we finish, Tammy had shared a draft in our DX Ventures group. I think there's going to be a proposal, if it's not already live, there's going to be a proposal live for the grant to Atlantis World. And one idea which we had mentioned a while ago is to include some extra incentive using carrots. So like it's like a $50,000 grant, and there was like a $10,000 or $20,000 like additional grant award if like a few different conditions were met, in terms of like integrations of DXDAO's products and stuff into the into Atlantis World. So there's some kind of, I don't know, blurriness or whatever, where like the base grant is for X, Y, and Z, and then there's like some stretch goals which weren't part of the plan, but if they were accomplished, there's like they hold these carrots which become worth more money, and it's doing it as a grant. It's like a pretty cool idea. I mean, it's extra money spent and stuff, and we don't know like how valuable this money spent in general is, but it's an interesting thing. It's the metaverse. DXDAO is not there yet, and so if we're gonna do something, it's a cool idea to embed carrot into that like type of grant, I think. So if people agree with that, I think that's going to be included.
Yeah, I think trustlessly giving out milestone rewards with carrot is a great use case for carrot, and if we can dog food that, that's awesome.
Sweet. Yeah, that'd be a cool story to share.
Yeah, so Keenan wanted to have a few minutes at the end.
Things to call attention to. We don't need to record or can. It doesn't really matter to me. You can finish up if there's anything else.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're done with this. I can stop it if that's set.